Okay, well, let me read our opening prayer, and then David, you can take over, and then we'll get on with the Torah study. Um, so I'm going to just read our blessing in English today. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
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 Well, David, why don't you take
Okay,
over for a second and
thank you. This
get
one's a
things
little
squared away
longer than
here?
usual because it comes with a story. Stargazers is the poem I'd like to read today. It's the inspiration for the title of my latest book. And it was kind of interesting. I was way back in Ontario, Canada, at Queen's doing my master's thesis, and I came across Stargazers that was written in 1806 by William Wordsworth. And I just loved it. And, I mentioned it in the draft of my thesis, which my thesis advisor got to, and he penciled in a comment. Wordsworth wrote some wretched verse. And I thought that was about the funniest thing I had heard in years. And I was laughing and laughing. And the next day I visited my supervisor and I'm still chuckling over it. And he looks at me very seriously and he says, I meant that seriously. That is not a joke. And I found that even funnier. And I'm laughing. And then he starts to smile and we're both laughing. And he says, I guess it was pretty darn funny, wasn't it? Anyway, here's the poem. What crowd is this? What have we here? We must not pass it by. A telescope upon his frame and pointed to the sky. Long as it as a barber's pole or mast of a little boat, some little pleasure skiff that doth on Thames' waters float. The showman chooses well his place, 'tis Leicester's busy square, and he's as happy in his night for the heavens are blue and fair. Calm though impatient as the crowd, each is ready with the fee, and envies him that's looking, what an insight it must be. Yet, showman, where can lie the cause? Shall thy implement have blame? A boaster that when he is tried fails, and is put to shame. Or is it good as others are, and be their eyes at fault? Is nothing of the radiant pomp so good as we have here, or gives a thing but small delight, that never can be dear? The silver moon with all her veils, and hills of mightiest fame, do they betray us when they're seen, or are they but a name? Whatever be the cause, 'tis sure that they who pry and pour seem to meet with little gain, seem less happy than before. One after one they take their turns, nor have I one espied that doth not slackly go away, as if dissatisfied. And even today, I've gotten people who have complained about what a telescope has to offer, because they're so used to pictures from the Hubble and the Webb telescopes, they expect a backyard telescope to perform the same way. They don't. And I can just end this by saying that I have never in my life looked through a bad telescope. And so that's the poem that I wanted to read to you. And Marty, thanks to you and back to you now.
Okay, well, thank you, iambic pentameter. That is I always enjoy poetry, so it's okay.
There's Marcia. Hi, Marcia.
So Marcia is with us, and
Yeah.
Lynn will come back in. So uh-oh, Marcia, you hit a button that you're sharing your screen.
Mhm.
Can you unshare the screen? Because it'll be hard to see everyone.
Hmm.
Marcia, you're muted.
I'm gonna try to reload and see what happens.
Well, it was Marcia who's sharing.
Oh, I see you guys now.
Yeah, but I can't see the whole group.
Oh, I can. I'm in gallery view.
What is she doing?
I'm on an iPad, and when that Zoom came up with Marcia, I
Yes.
took my finger and went across, and then now I see the gallery view
Huh, I
on
wonder
my
if,
iPad.
well,
I don't know what I did.
everybody will have to bear with me because I can only see a few people.
Well, she
Marcia,
would,
can you delete or at least get out of sharing your computer?
Okay. I don't know how.
Maybe if you sign out and come back in.
yeah. Yeah, sign out and come back in. Maybe it'll correct it.
I don't know if it's going to work. Oh,
Well, hell. Oh, heck.
What did I do?
you hit the
Yeah.
wrong button. You're doing screens sharing. So everything that's on your computer is visible to everyone. I'm going to try something and see what happens. No. The only thing we can do is everybody leave the meeting.
Right.
Marcia, please leave the meeting and then come back on.
Do you know how to do that? Go ahead and leave.
Marcia, can you please sign out?
I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
But come back in though, Marcia. After
that's
you-
right, and then come back in.
We don't want to lose you.
I can't turn it off. You know
Well, while
what?
Marcia is trying to do that, we are in a new a new area in the book of Numbers. It is a totally different it's a totally different uh, passage and seems almost out of place. It's going to be shifting into other areas because we have gone through all these trials and tribulations, and we addressed the issue of the four daughters of Zepheliad. I think that's how you say it, or something like that. And Zepheliad, and he, okay, and he, uh, he died and left his four daughters. They present themselves to Moses, and they said, "Well, if everyone else is going to get land, all the men, what are we to do? None of us are married, and there's nobody that in our family that can take care of us. So." What should happen? And, we would like to be able to preserve the heritage so that it stays with our clan, our tribe, and it resultingly Moses consults with God, and God says they should share the inheritance. So each daughter has has been now blessed with a portion of the inheritance of their father. Otherwise, it would have just disappeared, unfortunately. I would hope Marcia can get rid of this because, okay, she,
It's-
Marcia,
Yeah.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but I can't see.
Okay, if you can't, do you see, on the bottom of your screen oh yeah, you got it done. You got it done.
Give up. I give up.
No, now you're fine. You took care of it. Marcia, you're okay.
Marcia,
Thank
you're a genius. You
Can you hear us, Marcia?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes, but your image is frozen for now. Whatever happened, you'll be okay. You'll be
Okay,
okay.
we lost Rabbi Mary. Mary was coming on, and she's not here now.
I have no idea what's going on at this point. I don't know if she purposefully signed out or what. But anyway, hopefully she'll be back. I don't know. Well, we'll just have to go along. I won't be able to see if Marcia raises a hand or anything, so there's just no way unless she signs out completely. But I'll let that up to her. So anyway, we will be starting on Numbers 28, verse 1. Numbers 28, verse 1.
Would you like me to start the reading?
Sure. Now what we want to do, what we can do here is if anyone has a question, just raise a hand and I'll hopefully see it in time that we don't get ahead too far. But David, if you would kindly read verses 1 through the end of 8.
Okay, will do. Okay, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel, and say unto them, My food which is presented unto me for offerings made by fire, of a sweet savor unto me, shall ye observe to offer unto me in its due season. And thou shalt say unto them, This is the offering made by fire, which ye shall bring unto the Lord. He lambs of the first year without blemish, 2 day by day, for a continual burnt offering. The one lamb shalt thou offer in the morning, and the other lamb shalt thou offer at dusk. And the 10th part of the ephah of fine flour for a meal offering, mingled with the 4th part of him of beaten oil. It is a continual burnt offering. And I noticed the use of continual over continuous, which was offered in Mount Sinai for a sweet savor, an offering made by fire unto the Lord.
Okay,
Okay, that's the end of 6.
right. Okay, go ahead and read through to the end of 8.
Okay, and the drink offering thereof shall be the 4th part of him for the one lamb. In the holy place shalt thou pour out a drink offering of strong drink unto the Lord. And the other lamb shalt thou present at dusk as the meal offering of the morning, and as the drink offering thereof. Thou shalt present it an offering made by fire of a sweet savor unto the Lord.
Okay. Any ideas come to mind? Hi, Rabbi Mary.
Can you see me?
Yes.
I cannot see myself there, so I don't.
Okay. No mirrors.
Okay, okay, so I know that I'm there, but I don't see me. So I'm
Okay.
struggling with this. That's why
That's
I'm
funny.
joining now.
That's funny.
Just tell me where we are and I'll join.
We are in Numbers 28,
Mm-hmm.
verses, we just started, verses 1 through the end of 8.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And by the way, Rabbi Mary, Lynn Liebling is with us, and so is Marcia. They're both.
Yeah, so
Marcia's
much.
screen
So
is frozen for some reason, and we had some difficulties. She
Yeah, I could
accidentally
hear
hit.
you. I could hear you. I can see you. I just cannot see myself. I'll bring a mirror. That's okay.
Anyway, any ideas come to mind?
Uh, what comes to my mind is the pleasing odor, the scent that um, that apparently that God likes, and during services, and particularly the high holiday services, and I refer to the Orthodox because that's what I was, that's what I
Sure,
lived.
you grew up with it. Sure.
Yeah, and so during the service, there was something passed around that we all would smell. And I think that may be a representation of what we're reading right now when it comes to a pleasing odor to the Lord.
Okay. Makes sense. Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm noticing the categories of food that are being offered. The meat from the lambs, the meal mixed with oil, which would probably smell like toast when it was burnt, and the libation, some sort of fermented drink like beer or something.
Mm-hmm.
Could be wine because they're in the desert, they're not growing grapes unless
Right.
they trade for it. But grain you can ferment wherever you are. So like the categories, meat and grain and fluid, but it's not water. It's interesting. It's fermented drink. I wonder what this. I don't have any comment as what why.
Okay. Well, there is some people uh, have slightly different translations. In verse 2, it's one English translation says, "Be punctilious."
Yeah, that's the one I have. That's plow.
Okay, clout, yes. And uh, so some other people may have another phraseology in verse 2. But you want to be sure you pay attention and follow every detail. So in these rituals, and uh, so every day this was happening. Is there? Can you come up with any? Why is it coming after all of the trials and tribulations that the Israelites had to go through? Any comments about that?
Well, if
It's
well,
I heard,
if you
yeah,
follow my rule, you wouldn't have these trials and tribulations.
you'd be very busy. Can you imagine the culling the this is for every day, okay? This is not just on special occasions, that comes later, but this is every day. And so it would be a very difficult task. You would be very busy doing a lot of preparation of things and sacrificing all of this. Because this is not just for the priests, it's for all the people. Yes, Donna.
Yes, okay, it's on verse 6 in my book. The regular burnt offering instituted at Mount Sinai. So that's sort of a little that it was started there and they're
Right,
continuing it.
right.
Okay.
So in other words, so is this a reiteration? because the people had forgotten to do this?
Wouldn't surprise me. They're forgetting
Or-
a lot of things.
Or is it for the reader?
Huh. Both.
Yeah, I think it's we could interpret it two different ways, and it's for all time. So, and this uh, supposedly there are people who in Judaism who recognize that this was done as a regular offering up through the times of the destruction of the Second Temple.
Hmm.
So that's a lot. You know, when you think about the numbers, we're going to come back to the numbers that we'll see later on.
Well, that's a lot of lambs too.
No kidding.
I'm reading now the Stone explanation, which is before it starts the commentary. It says that the next two chapters describe the Musaf, additional offering that were brought to the temple on the Shabbat, new moon, Rosh Chodesh, and the festivals and the Chagim, since by definition they were to be offered as an addition to the Tamid, the daily continual offering. The Torah first describes the basic offering. What we're talking about in all this is not for every day. That's very, very obvious. As you said, who was Dana? I mean, it's a lot of sheep and a lot of stuff. That's not the idea. And I don't know if you know the song of Shabbat that says, Uveyom, Uveyom, Uveyom HaShabbat, Shenei Kvasim Temimim. That's the two kids that need to be offered. Uveyom HaShabbat, Shenei Kvasim Temimim. So we know that on Shabbat they had two. Now, regarding the times, those maybe, Michael, you remember the times of prayer? How do we have to, I mean, not we, the one that wants to pray? How many times a day and when? When do
This,
other Jews, not me, pray during the day?
okay, well, morning,
Morning,
midday,
midday is Mincha, and Maariv.
and Musaf at that
Okay,
night.
yeah, now, Musaf is there are on Shabbat, there is an extra reading
Yes.
again that I never understood why they do that since they've done that already. But here we're talking about the times that are very important. And it's not about every day. As you said, guys, we wouldn't be able to work, to eat, or to sleep if we keep doing all these things every day. Secondly, it's not Kol Israel. I mean, we are there to bring the stuff, but the one that does it is the Kohen Agadol. It's the
Right.
high priest and his members and so forth. So when we talk about sacrifices, it's not for you and me and them and so forth.
Right.
It's what's happening in the temple, and in the temple it happens by one person. Okay, on the Shabbat, there is addition that has been done. And I'm emphasizing the issue of time because in the Talmud, they talk about how people, they didn't have clocks or watches. So how did they know when to pray in the morning? How do they know when is morning?
Anybody?
Sun.
Sun, right?
Yes,
I
John,
mean,
that's
when we
right.
see the
Up.
sun coming up,
Yeah.
and immediately
That's
when the
right.
sun comes down.
And there was no daylight savings time. So
No saving time and no other time. Yeah. Now, so this we have the times of things. So we're talking here about two things, is what do we bring, the toast and the meat, and it's wine, what they're talking about at the end, it's wine. As
And
Lynn was
the other
mentioning,
thing that
that,
I think,
you can ferment stuff, and what you get wine, basically.
Oh, beer too.
Or
Yeah.
beer, I mean, something that's alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called sechar, which in verse 7 you can see.
and one thing
Um,
that I think is that the people who were out there in the desert without the internet, without television, were able to tell, and without clocks, were able to tell the time in addition to the sun's position in the sky
right,
by the positions of the planets and the moon at night. And they
that's
were
right.
able to measure time that way, and probably very well, I think.
And I'll tell you what more thing about the sky and that. I mean, we do know that the Jews, that we have a moon calendar, and it never stopped. I mean, we still have a moon calendar. Since
Yes.
we are part of the world, we use the sun calendar as well. But even in the Talmud, they were saying, okay, how do you know that the month starts? How do you know when it's 1st of March, 1st of April? If you don't know April 1st, you might not have all the jokes that happen then. So how do you know about it?
Well, they knew by the phase of the moon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, that's what happens. They had to send two people, no less, no more, no more, maybe, yes, no less, to the top of the mountain and check what's going on in the sky. And it says, well, there's no moon, it's completely black. Okay, we are still in March. So how do we know when we are in April? And I'm just playing with it. Okay, I'll say the months, the Hebrew months, okay? We are in Nisan. And then when do we know we go to Iyar? Well, we'll send two more people to the top of the mountain, and they see a sliver of the moon.
The
Yay!
little
We
moon.
are the first of the year now. Let's run to the city and let them know. So they come and they testify that they saw the moon. So that's the beginning of the month. And how do they communicate it to everyone? I mean, here they are in Jerusalem, let's say. How the people in Kiryat Shmone or in the border or wherever, or in America, how does everyone know that's beginning of the month?
By as you say, by the appearance of the very slim sliver of moon.
Right,
The
but that's
other
in
thing,
Jerusalem. You know that at the same time, that's was the calendar starts there. And they have to communicate, guys, it's already a new month, turn the page. So they put fires on top of the mountains, and the fires move very much. I think it's like Native American kind of thing to communicate with other parts. Now, why is it that in the diaspora outside Israel and Jerusalem, we celebrate 2 days of Pesach, 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, not in Israel?
the thing that I was taught when I was young is that in Israel they only celebrate Rosh Hashanah and the holidays that are that normally go on for 2 days outside of Israel only are celebrated for one in Israel. But the point I wanted to make here is, in addition to that, they also had a trick to make sure that they didn't end Shabbat too early. And that is, they would go outside, and when they would sight 3 stars in the sky, then they know that Shabbat was over. And that, I think, is a part of this. Those people were stargazers.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Let me just talk again about the 2 days so you know this. Why in America you have to spend two seders? Isn't that enough? One, we said for 4 hours last week. So why two? Because the communication was not by satellite. And when you put fires from mountain to mountain, until it gets to the diaspora, already a day went by. And you didn't want to not make sure that they fall into that period of Aleph the Rosh Hashanah, Bet the Rosh Hashanah, Aleph of Pesach, Bet of Pesach. So they had a larger to make sure that they fall into the date that they were told that it should happen. It's, you know what, it's very much like if I want to talk to my brother in Israel, I have to look at the watch and know that he is already behind me 9 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so he is not, today's Shabbat, he already finished Shabbat, let's say. Well, let's say later, it's finished Shabbat. Yeah, there is 7 in the evening, he finished Shabbat. So if my calendar starts in Jerusalem, I have to make sure that all that period of time is, so therefore, it's 2 days of holidays. So now I spoke too much about that. But it's that the sacrifices are only done by the main rabbi, by the high priest, and in the temple, nowhere else, nowhere else. And that's something for us to remember because later on in history, this is a big problem. But it's in the temple, it's by the priest, and not each one of us at home has to slaughter a kid or do the rest of the stuff. So that's about the Chagim and the Shabbat and the times. Maybe later on I'll say another thing because there is a statement, and I wish Norm was here because I don't remember if it's Talmud or maybe Lynn, you know, or Pirkei Avot. It's called Avar Zmano Batel Korbano. When the time passed, you don't have to do the sacrifice, meaning that the sacrifice needs to be done exactly at that time.
Right.
And we use it for as a phrase to say, well, I wanted to come to visit you in the hospital, but I couldn't. So the time went by, you don't have to do it. You know, it's a mitzvah that is tied with time. That's also collected when we women do. The mitzvot that women and men have to do are separated by, some are connected with time and some are not. You know, it's a big Megillah. It's complicated, but in this case, you see that they have wine, they have bread, and they have meat. And if you want to think about it in the desert, go ahead and do it. But basically, it's what's happening later on in the temple. Those are the sacrifices. And as David knows, everything was connected with the sky because it's the moon and in the stars that tell the time and the moon tells the month. And even for the Romans, you know, the sun did it. Okay.
I just have a couple of more things to respond to from your very, very interesting comment just now. And that is that the ancient Hebrews about whom we're reading these days at Torah study, they also followed astrology, which is the predictive part of the stars. A lot of modern scientists reject that, and I do too. But if it weren't for the purposes of astrology, then we would not have a telescope today to enjoy the night sky. We would not have a Hubble Space Telescope or a Webb Space Telescope. And finally, I just want to say regarding time, which is also so important, is that I believe you wanted to say that the time in Israel is 9 hours ahead of us rather than behind us. So they are ahead of us in time.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
Did
what
I said that? Yeah. It's 7 evening now there. Yeah.
So I have a general question about other culture, the astronomy fix. And many cultures by this time were tracking the movements of the sun, and they identified certain stars. We know that they knew where Sirius was, right? So there was a certain sophistication. Why do you think it is, whereas, like, for instance, the Egyptian culture was very sun-based, that the Israelite culture was much more moon-based? It did not ignore the sun, but the moon determines the yearly calendar, by the months and
does
stuff.
determine that.
So
Yeah,
does anybody have any idea what that's about? Why was the moon more important?
well, I believe Rabbi Miri explained that just very well right now. But it's all part of the relationship, I believe, the beautiful and fun relationship that the ancient Hebrews, and hopefully we too today, have to the night sky. And, there is, speaking of astrology, there is a commandment. We are not to worship the stars. There's
Absolutely.
no commandment that says that we cannot enjoy them and use them as predictive natures for fun. And that, I believe, and in answer that goes all the way back to Genesis for signs and for seasons. And the signs are right there in Genesis, indicating go out and enjoy it, just don't worship it.
That's right. Yeah, but Lynn, as a calendar is all our holidays are connected with agriculture by seasons. Now, with the moon, I think that the ancient people realized that there is as David will tell you, there is a very good consistency. They realize that they can count the days by the moon. The cycle of the moon gives you those 28 days. And in the Hebrew calendar, there are only 28 days every month. So that's the cycle of the moon that can be observed. What did exactly the Egyptians do? I don't know. I don't even know how the Romans worked with the sun to make the calendar. I don't know. I'm sorry, because I keep thinking. I mean, there were two things that we needed for that calendar. Since it's agriculture calendar, we needed to make sure that Pesach is in the spring and that Sukkot is in the fall. So those were the celebrations.
One
Okay.
of the
Excuse me, I want to interrupt. Michael has had his hand up,
Oh.
and for everyone, when you see someone raise their hand, let's recognize that person, and then Donna will be. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, thank you so much. Lynn, to your original question, why was it studied? And I just really have a simple answer, is because you can't look at the sun, but you can look at the moon, and because of the fact you can actually look at it, you can study it. Just plain and simple. You can actually study it because you can constantly look at it. You cannot do that with the sun. So that's
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Donna, and then I want to say a few words. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had thought the same thing. Looking at the moon is going to be more accurate as opposed to the sun, because it takes the sun really quite a while, um, to change in the sky, the light, you know, to be shorter days, longer days. Um, and the question I have is the weather. Now that's got to play a part in it too, depending upon where you're at and on a continent or whatever. If it's summer, it's hotter, right? Um, so I'm wondering, maybe with the Egyptians, if that's how they use the sun along with the weather. What does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a little different
Well,
from that. Lynn, you're shaking your head. I'll let you go first and then I'll chip in.
Okay, so you know I have a background in Egyptology.
oh,
And what I remember is not there were 3 seasons
oh,
based on the flooding of the Nile.
Right.
So there were three seasons, and they divided up the year, and it got them to 360 days. If you divide three, 12, so the whatever that was on the divisions, and there were 5 days left over, which they used as holidays at the end of the year to get up to 365. And I don't know what they did with the fudge factor, the quarter of a day, but it was the sun god was much more important
Mhm.
than the moon god. The sun was eternal or whatever. The royalty was considered the son of the sun god. It was the kings were semi-divine, not totally, but the connection was not with the moon god. It was with the sun god. But yeah, the calendar was based on, as I say, the 3 divisions of flood, and then there was after the flood, the planting season, and then the harvest season.
Right. Uh, there are some issues that, if you think about it, and even if what I want to do is start the discussion a little bit more with since we're talking about calendars, you run into problems in all of the different measuring systems. So you have to decide what you're going to use each system for. As Lynn was alluding to, the sun was good, and almost all cultures, all tribal cultures are this way. If you look at their huts, the door, okay, for the opening of the hut in Africa, frequently will, in many tribes, will be facing east. Okay, especially their temples. Okay, you see it in the Druids and beyond, and ancient cultures. The mound people in the doorways faced east. Oh, it's morning. Okay, we have to get up. Okay, we have tasks to do. But the sun was used later on for agriculture. One thing that Lynn, she's very accurate in what she was saying, but the nothing grows if the sun doesn't shine. Okay, all plant life just can't survive. The plants we need to survive, and so they didn't understand all of the different reasoning, but they did know that the sun had some miraculous power. And so in many cultures, the sun is this way. Well, we're different. And in Israelites, the solar calendar was an agricultural calendar. Okay. And I tend to think of it because Native Americans, they would use the crests of mountains, and they would see that the sun would go in different back and forth between two mountains throughout the year. We have a name for that, the analema or analemma. And it's the path the sun makes. By the way, every globe has one, even a Mercator map will have a figure 8 in the Pacific Ocean, okay, which is really the path the sun takes in the sky, okay? But on the if you look at it horizontally, you just see the sun going back and forth, back and forth. So you can fix your times that way when you're a quarter of halfway or a quarter of a way through, you have even a more accurate clock. Okay. And so agriculturally, you would know when it's time to plant and when it's time to harvest. Okay. But the flooding of the Nile, it's seasonal. They use that too. There are so many different ways. The lunar calendar is different. And not many people use the lunar calendar. I tend to look at it, and this is my personal way of looking at it, it is not as accurate. It is a spiritual calendar. It lets you know when it's time to do certain religious rituals, time to pray, time is dictated, and the lunar calendar is different. There was a lecturer at the JCC a few years back, and she was discussing this difference between the Egyptian calendar, which was a solar calendar, and the Israelite calendar, which started everything, in the Jewish calendar, which is lunar. Well, it's okay, but it doesn't take too long that if you follow a lunar calendar, your planting season gets all screwed up.
That's correct.
Okay. And so the ancient, and if you think about a simple way of looking at it, you take so in the Hebrew calendar has decided to add an extra month every so often.
Right.
We add an extra day in the solar calendar every so often to make up the differences.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you don't, things get out of whack, sometimes faster than others or slower than others, but the timing for everything is thrown off. And so as a result, you had to make these little tweaks. Unfortunately, if you go by the Arabic calendar, they do not make any adjustments. Those of you who know anything about that know that there's a certain holiday called Ramadan, and if you go from one year to the next, it's celebrated at a different time. That calendar is very strictly based on a lunar calendar. So every so often you'll say, oh yeah, I remember we celebrated Ramadan we saw them celebrate Ramadan in December, but now they're celebrating it in the summer. Okay. And it'll take, what is it, 19 years for everything to balance out there.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
And so to make their complete cycle, but everything gets thrown off if you follow the lunar calendars very strictly. So you must also have a solar calendar to know when it's time to plant. However, the other thing is for those of you who know about Lecha Dodi and the Shekinah, okay, what is the Shekinah associated with?
The indwelling presence of God.
Yeah.
Of
The feminine one.
spirit of the feminine
The
aspect,
feminine. Yeah.
and it is attributed to the moon. Okay, and we're going to read something very special about the moon. Everything is going to be centered around the moon here. All the sacrifices, all the rituals.
Hmm.
So there's much, much more to this than we have time to, to go on. Anybody who has a chance to visit the museum at the Vatican,
Hmm.
calendars did not always follow the sun because they were for eons. They were based on the names of very prominent. You had the names of the popes would be when they lived from point A to point B, or a king or a queen, and so it eventually they died, and you run into problems because how do you overlap the calendars? To be perfectly honest, we have no way of knowing if this year is actually 2025. There's absolutely nothing. Now, where do I get that information? There is a fellow, I wanted to, just blanked on his name. His books were very popular in the 1970s. The Discoverers, and this is from the Book of Discoverers. It starts with a B. I wanted to say Bernstein, but I know it may not exactly be that. He was the curator of the Smithsonian Institute, and in that he devotes half of the book for the discoverers of understanding time because it was so chaotic in the past. Remember, you had water clocks and everything they follow the dripping. Well, you know as well as I do that it depends on a whole bunch of other factors. If the drops are a certain size or not, if somebody accidentally bumps the bowl or something, and everything is thrown off. So you have to be very careful of that. And there were all kinds of other calendars. We know that the Analema that led to the solar clocks, and you could actually see the time of day following the shadow and on a disc. And many cultures did that also. So when we look at this, Boorstin. Boorstin is the name of the fellow, Daniel Boorstin, who is the curator of the Smithsonian. And of an 800-page book, he devotes half of it to man's understanding of time. And so, knowing all of this, when you go into the Vatican, you see a whole bunch of the different calendars that they collected from all around the globe, and each one is totally different from the next. And it becomes very difficult to understand. So we really aren't sure that this is 2025, but we accept it.
Well, Marty, as you're saying, that's quite fascinating that they collected all these, what we call calendars. These are ways of making out of chaos, making some of
Exactly.
order, but
Yes.
that's what it is. It's not anything else but taking something that we don't have control over it whatsoever and just organizing it for our own sake. Because I can say, 1 minute of sitting and having ice cream is not just like the 1 minute of being at the dentist. So so the issue of time is
Right.
completely different what we
Yes.
feel and what we have a need to know when is the show start and when the bus comes. But it's completely what's the word I want? I know that word. It's just up to us. It's not a natural thing.
It's arbitrary.
Arbitrary, that's the word.
That's right.
Thank you, Marty. It's arbitrary, and every culture did another arbitration about that. The constant, as David is going to tell you, the constants are around us. It's the sun and the moon and the stars
Yes.
and the black holes or whatever those are. I don't know. But it's something for us to remember. I have a very, very smart person I work with. He talks about everything is about space and time.
And time. Now,
Just organize it.
Yeah,
now,
Heschel.
go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, Abraham Heschel, he talks about that,
Mm-hmm.
which I love, the book, The Sabbath,
Right.
Yes, it's a good, because it's a mind warp, because
Exactly.
we put so much importance on what time is, and that isn't what time is.
Right.
So it's interesting, and I do love his work. Very.
I'm with you.
Yes. Yes. Please, Lynn. Yes. And then I'll bring something else in there. Lynn, you're muted.
Yeah. And Heschel talks about Judaism being a religion focused more on time,
Mm-hmm.
on place, like the settled cultures with their cities and organization, they were very emphasized more a particular place. They were gods of place. Well,
Mm-hmm.
God traveled with us throughout Sinai and the desert. God was not located only in one place. And so time became more important in Judaism. That's a real big difference
Yeah. And
from what the surrounding cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now here's a little twist on things. Let's go back to the first day of creation. Okay. And with the first day of creation, what does God do?
The heavens and the earth.
What? I missed that. Yeah, David, your hand is up. Okay, so
Yeah, the first thing is that he says, let there be light. A very important thing. The very first commandment
that's
that he
right.
says, the very first thing he says, let there be light.
Okay, and remember, God always says it's repeated in Torah again and again. Light is good, dark not. So that's one thing. But what else? What does God do on the second day? What does he do in the some people have it's interpreted as void. Some people have said a separation of waters.
Heavens and the earth.
The what?
The heavens and the earth.
That's Marcia.
That's right. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't. I was looking at Marcia. You're right. I fell for it. Your image is frozen on there. We don't see you per se. So but it is very true. And everything else that falls into place subsequently is order. Everything is chaotic. And God is putting it into order
Hmm.
in Torah, in Torah. And if you think about what's going on here with the Israelites, how do you take this band of scruffy people who are thinking about all kinds of crazy things, okay? And how do you put order into their lives?
Rules.
Rituals.
Rituals. Yeah.
Make them do things at a particular time so that it focuses and puts order into their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, with the light, going back to the first day, you can interpret. I interpret it also not just the physical light, but about what kind of light
Right.
God is providing.
Right.
Knowledge, truth. That's kind of how I interpret that too.
Well,
That makes
yes,
a lot more
those
sense.
seem to go together with
Mhm.
light.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
enlightenment.
And what is
yes.
on the other side? If you were Darth Vader,
Well,
the
there's got to be
dark
that
side,
balance of the
it would be
good.
the dark side.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we don't learn unless we have a dark side.
Well, the dark,
If you use it as an example, so
the
you
dark,
can mend your ways.
the dark, the
Yeah,
dark side is really the absence of light.
right, right. So
Or
you can
ignorance. It could be ignorance too.
you can interpret it that way.
Yeah.
Some people have said the dark is associated with evil.
Mm.
He's a dark person.
The dark
Darth Vader is
ages.
dark.
Yeah.
It can be being morose, if you will, as opposed to happy.
It's just how you emphasize it. I mean, we talk about
Yes.
in prayer, the rolling on of evening twilight. It could be symbolically the end of the workday.
Sure.
Like at evening, we have a meal, we take a break, we maybe say some prayers. It can be very comforting to be in a being in a cave, dark and
Yes.
going back to the womb. All of those
Mm-hmm. And all of these
positive.
symbols that you mentioned have been discussed. Then that's right. Philosophers have had a ball with this.
I just wanted to mention that the light of the first day was not the light of the sun or the moon because they hadn't been
Right.
created yet. It was generalized light, like photons coming out of,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they originated from, but that sort of imitates what scientists have talked about, that
Yes, it does.
after 300,000 years, some
You got it.
came into the universe before they had coalesced into bodies like suns and stars and
That's
whatever.
right. So yes, David.
Well, yeah, I think what Lynn has said is very important. And I think in Genesis, when God says, "Let there be light," modern science, I think, suggests that that light is the Big Bang when God creates the universe, which is not the light of the sun, but a much greater light when the entire universe is created. And the other thing, Marty, what you were saying about time really interested me, that I'd like to suggest another writer who wrote a lot about time, and that was Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yes.
Macbeth, I counted no fewer than 59 references in the play to time, all over that play. In fact, at one point, Banquo refers to time as a character with parents and children and the future and everything. And so I think we have to add him to one of the people who wrote about time.
Yes. Father Time.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
Um,
it is it is it's interesting. So maybe all of these things that we're reading about in Torah, could it also be recognizing that it's a battle between God and chaos. Because if I'll get to you, Michael, in a second. Let me just finish this. If it's a battle between, then you start saying man is made in God's image. Maybe that's what God wants of us, is to battle chaos and to have an order in our lives. I don't know, but I just toss it out for thought. Yes, Michael.
In reference to let there be light, it could have been, at least as far as my thinking goes, it could have been the radiance of God that created that first light.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one. That's very good. Excellent. Yes, David.
What you were saying about God versus chaos is expressed so well by Milton in Paradise Lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he were here, he would be really applauding what you just said, as I do.
Thank you. Uncle Milty. Anyway, I'm sorry for going off on a tangent like this. Go ahead, Liam.
Question. So later views of God, like from the Hasidim, who
Yeah.
said there's nothing outside of God.
Mm-hmm.
Ein od milvado. So wouldn't that embrace chaos? Chaos is also
Yes.
part of God.
Yes. But in order for life to exist, there has to be some order. Okay. In order for the world to exist, there has to be some order.
So there's a dance, though, here
Yes.
between order
Constantly.
and the disintegration of form, which
Mhm.
we can call chaos, but forms are temporary in the Buddhism. They are changing. There's movement. So we come together and then go into a dissolution of some sort, and then there's rebirth, maybe of something different. But
That's right.
it's a dance.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because time is dynamic. It's not, as you said before, it's not in a place and it's not standing anywhere. It's something moving all the time, and we move with it too. And regarding the issue of chaos and God, it's a good point, and I think I spoke about it before, that we define, in Adon Olam, for example, we say, Lelo Reshit, Lelo Tachlit. It doesn't have beginning and it doesn't have end. That's chaos. I mean, it's not the word chaos as we know is in Hebrew, we'll say balagan, that there is a mishmash of things, but it's not a defined thing. It's not, God doesn't have any definitions, because like time, it's a force, and that's what Heschel and Reb Zalman talks about, the issue of being a force. What word does he use? Not dynamic, another one. It's like when we read the book, God is a verb,
Yes.
which there is
Yes.
move. There's not a thing. And this
Right.
is the difference between us in our godliness, that it's a force, it's not a cow or a star or the moon or the sun or anything. It's chaos. And now the order that was created is for us, because as we were saying before, we need to know what time are we finish this session, so we can finish at the same time. But time is a different thing, and basically everything that's around us as we think about, these are just forces. And as Michael was saying, without darkness, there is no light. Without light, there is no
Yeah.
darkness. If you think about it, light is only a reflection. Am I right, David? we see the stars, we don't see anything, we see just a reflection of something that reflects back. I'm looking at Marty, there's no Marty there, it's a reflection of the light on that thing called Marty. So
That's right.
it's, it's like everything, well, leave me
No,
alone.
but that's true. Very
Keep
well
going.
stated. David has had his hand up for a long time now. Let me give him the floor.
Okay, I just wanted to add another phrase to what Rabbi Mary just said, and that is the time has no beginning or an end, and that is echoed in Adon Olam, an ending and beginningless.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
strength is, all sway he bears.
Yeah, that's the Adon Olam. Yeah.
So now with that in mind, all of these discussions, now let's go on back to the Torah, and we'll read it because we're going to be now, we understand place. The journey takes place in the desert. Okay, the wandering takes place in the desert. But now we're going to have, you remember I started the session that everything changes in the story rather than a narration. We're going to delineate rituals to be done at a specific time. Okay. So let's start. David, if you would like to read, or Lynn, I know you have a plout in front of you. Either way, let's go 9. Just 9 and 10.
Okay, I can read that, although I really would like to, the next section, I would love to hear Lynn reading. But it
Sure.
says in 9, and on the Sabbath day, 2 he-lambs of the first year without blemish, and 2/10 parts of an ephah of fine flour for a meal offering, mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof.
Okay. Any comments? I think Rabbi Miri discussed this very well. Okay, Lynn, if you would care to read verses 11 through the end of 15.
Okay.
Actually 10, start at 10.
Oh, you didn't read 10? Okay. A burnt offering for every Sabbath in addition to.
Yeah, that was the last of your reading, wasn't it, David?
You
Yes.
didn't
I missed it.
Oh, okay. So, Lynn, if you would start on verse 11 to the end of 15.
On your new moons, you shall present a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 bulls of the herd, 1 ram, and 7 yearling lambs without blemish. As meal offering for each bull, 3/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in. As meal offering for each ram, 2/10 of a measure of choice flour with oil mixed in. As meal offering for each lamb, 1/10 of a measure of fine flour with oil mixed in. Such shall be the burnt offering of pleasing odor, and offering by fire to the Lord. Their libation shall be 1/2 a hin of wine for a bull, 1/3 of a hin for a ram, and 1/4 of a hin for a lamb. That shall be the monthly offering, burnt offering for each new moon of the year. And there shall be 1 goat as a sin offering to the Lord, to be offered in addition to the regular burnt offering and its libation.
Okay. So now we have again, if you will, Rosh Kodesh. Okay. the new moon, feast of the new moon, or festival of the new moon. So again, speaking of those familiar with who may have a Chabad background, why is this very important? Because if the Shekinah is associated with the moon, their interpretation is to have a festival so that you'll get a rebirth of the Shekinah. So what happens in a lunar eclipse? Or a solar eclipse, let's put it that way.
Well, a solar eclipse, an eclipse of the sun, which we all had the joy of seeing last year, occurs only at new moon and occurs only when the shadow of the moon actually contacts the surface of the earth. And we get a couple of those a year someplace, either partial or total eclipses. And they're just so much fun to watch.
They are. There are certain things. David, could you talk about people were very observant back then. And David, when the sun's light goes through the mountains of the moon, what do we see?
Well, right at the point right before the total phase of an eclipse begins, when the sun's rays go through mountains, valleys on the moon, we see them as what's called Baily's beads.
Right.
And then sometimes just before, there is one great bead, which looks like a diamond ring. And we see that.
That's right. And what happens to when the light is playing on trees or several different images that you may see on the ground or
There
things?
we see little crescent suns in between the trees, and we see that during an eclipse.
That's
We see
right.
thousands of them.
And so as a result, this becomes now, Lynn, you understand the Sephirotic chart, right?
Mhm.
Okay. The sun is Tiferet. If isn't it not Tiferet? It's associated with the Sephir. It's dead center in the Sephirotic
Sefirot,
chart.
you mean?
I think,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be Keter?
Well, Keter is at the top, the crown.
Right?
But as you move down, and you go,
The Malachut.
it's associated with Jacob.
Tiferet is Jacob, I believe.
Right. And so if you link the two, the linking of the sun and the moon at a time of a solar eclipse, it becomes a very powerful symbol also. Okay. And you have a lot of it again, timing is everything because you can only see this for a few minutes when you're in the midst of a solar eclipse. And you see all of these other events occurring on the moon and the ground around you and in the trees and whatnot. It's a very interesting and it can be a mystical experience. So so seeing a solar eclipse in the Zohar, they address this at a point in the Zohar as well, because of it being such a mystical experience, and that's why people like to see the solar eclipse. It's not just about time and space. It's not just the science, but the experience that you go through. And lo and behold, they separate again and everything is fine. During that time, the temperature of the earth drops 10 degrees or more. So it shows you how much heat is generated by the sun.
Well, in the Torah, we do have, and now I'm just breaking my brains, where exactly it is. I think it's with the conquering of Canaan, that there is a point in which pointed out that it's like a miracle. And there is a
Yes.
solar eclipse.
Makes the
which
sun
is said-
stand still.
Right.
That's right.
Right. So it does exist. So in the Torah, things like that would be called a miracle, since
Yes.
it's once in a blue moon. No. So so we do know on a reaction to that, as you said, and
Yeah.
probably in many societies, hey, what's going on? According to my watch, it's 12 noon and there's no sun. So yeah, it's an important thing. I don't think that it changed the way of addressing time but it's like, ooh, what have
Yeah.
we done that this?
And so, ancient people have their own interpretations of these events. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because of Rosh Chodesh and being on the 15th day of the month. And you could measure the month very easily if you were using a lunar calendar. All you would do, you had no moon seen whatsoever. You had 2 half moons and a full moon. Now, science has added other terms for the crescents and gibbous moons and all that, but it becomes you can actually measure time that way, and you would now know. That's why the moon was so important. Also, but just doing that alone will get you in trouble very quickly because you'll be planting at the wrong time. So, and we're going to come up with this because some of these holidays seem to be celebrated at different times of the year.
Which holidays?
Well, when they talk about like this, like the seventh month, in the seventh month, we're going to come across that very
Yeah,
shortly.
because since the holiday is coming, it will be good to continue.
And so if you just go by the lunar, you run into problems because especially if you want to celebrate Sukkot and a holiday of it's a time to harvest. So based on just what we were discussing before. So anyway, with that in mind, let's start. David, would you care to read verses 16 through 25
Okay,
through the end of
Here we go.
25?
okay, here we go. And let me get my magnifier. And in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, is the Lord's Passover. And we all know that's coming up very soon now.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 15th day of this month shall be a feast. I like feasts. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. In the first day shall be a holy convocation. Ye shall do no manner of servile work, but ye shall present an offering made by fire, a burnt offering unto the Lord, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, and 7 he-lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish, and their meal offering, fine flour mingled with oil, 3/10 parts shall ye offer for a bullock, and 2/10 parts for the ram. And the several tenth part shalt thou offer for every lamb of the 7 lambs, and 1 he-goat for a sin offering, to make atonement for you. Ye shall offer these beside the burnt offering of the morning, which is for a continual burnt offering. After this manner you shall offer daily for 7 days the food of the offering made by fire, of a sweet savor unto the Lord, and now I'm trying to get to another page. Excuse me a moment. Am I missing a page? No, there's a page is here. It just doesn't want to show itself. Here we are. A sweet savor unto the Lord. It shall be offered beside the continual burnt offering and the drink offering thereof. And on the 7th day he shall have a holy convocation. He shall do no manner of servile work.
Okay. So this is the Passover service, but if you go by a lunar calendar, without any adjustments to it will shift just like in the Arab calendar. It will eventually occur during the winter months rather than in the spring. So it's a very interesting it's a very interesting phenomenon. Any other comments?
Okay, I want to point out, let's look at the times again, okay? If we go back to the
Sure.
beginning where David read, ובחודש הראשון, the first month,
Mm-hmm.
the 14th of the first month, that's Pesach.
Right.
Okay, so as you see, on this day, the 14th of the month, first of all, the first month. The first month is not January and it's not Tishrei,
Right.
it's Nisan, which usually it's between March and April, generally April.
Mm-hmm.
And we always think Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the month, it's in Tishrei. It was 6 months ago. No, the first month of the Jewish calendar is Nisan. It's the number 1 month. So Pesach is the first month and the first holiday of the calendar. Now, what do we are supposed to do on that first day, on the 14th of the month? Look at that verse and see what are we supposed to do?
Are you referring to the sacrifice?
No, it doesn't do any sacrifice. Look again, Marty. This is interesting. Just one verse. Basically,
Okay,
it's
you got me
nothing.
because that's the first thing, and then in 17 it says, then you have a festival on the 15th day.
Exactly, on the 15th, but the 14th is Passover. It's nothing to be done, and we know that during so the
Okay.
first day, the 14th, nothing is done, no sacrifices or nothing like that. Now the 15th of the month, that's the holiday, and 7 days you eat matzot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by Yom HaRishon, the first day, you should not be working. The first day. And then you go and do all the sacrifices, etc. But 7 days is the matzot days. And then if we go all the way down to 25th, to verse 25th, once again, we have the holiday in which you don't do any work. So we have the first day of Pesach and we have the last day of Pesach. These are the 2 days that you don't work. Just like Shabbat, just like Yom Kippur, Shavuot, okay? So it's an interesting holiday that's different than all the others that we have. First day is holiday, not working, and the last day is holiday, not working. Now in Israel, at least when I was there, the first day was the holiday. And we had the Seder and so forth, and the stores were closed, and people did not go to work. Then what happens 7 days? You have to eat matzot, that's the mitzvah, but you don't have to stop working. It doesn't say that. There are all the sacrifices going on, but since we don't have a temple, no sacrifices. So this, it's called Chol HaMoed. In Sukkot, it's the same thing. Chol means a non-sacred, which is a day like the 6 days of the week, not Shabbat, that's holy. So we have Chol HaMoed, which is the non-holidays of the holiday. So we have 7 days that are distinct from the days in the world, but the only thing we have to do is eat matzah. That's it. And then after 7 days, then we have the last day, which is a holiday, holy day that we don't work. So let's see it again. The first day is the 14th of the month. It's a holiday, no working. The last of the 7 days is a non-working. It's a holiday. In between, it's Chol HaMoed, in which we do work, but we eat matzah. You take a matzah sandwich into work. You don't eat bread. So it's an interesting for us to understand again the issue of timing. And time again, it's if you pay attention, the issue of when is as important as the what. So we're coming to Pesach now. So Pesach, the first night of Pesach, the Seder is the 11th. So what day we don't work in our calendar? When does the day start for us
At
in
night.
the Jewish
Midnight.
calendar?
At night.
Midnight.
At night. So 11, that day of the 11, you can work, you can travel, which I'm going to do, and then in the evening is the Seder. That's when the holiday starts. So the 12th, you don't go to work. See, I'm mixing now two calendars. The 11th, just to make it easier for us. But the 11th evening is the first Seder. The next day, the 12th, we don't work. That's the first one. Now we are in the United States of America. So what happens? The 12th in the evening, we again have another Seder and another day of not working. Isn't that convenient? I mean, just that's. But let's remember that first, that the day for us starts in the evening and finishes in the evening. And that's the only day of not working. Then 7 days is Matzah Day. And in the temple, all this stuff is happening. It's not in our house because we don't do all that stuff at home. And then comes after the 7th day, we have again a holiday. And that's how the package of Pesach is going. So the 11th at night, we start with the diet of matzah. And we go with that for 7 days, and then we rest. So you probably need to rest after so much matzah. So we don't go to work, and that's another holiday.
Okay.
Got it? I hardly did.
Now, when we were reading this several years ago, initially there were two holidays. One was the festival or festivals, the festival of matzah, which I think,
Right.
and the other one was a festival that related to the Paschal Lamb. So do you, on the first day, is that where is that associated with the festival of the Paschal Lamb?
I don't know what holiday is that, Marty. I think you're,
Well, no, there were two Passovers.
no, one only. The other one doesn't seem to be ours.
Well, not now, but early on, it was spoken about that there are two, that in times past, before everything came together, one dealt with the event of uh, taking the blood of the Paschal lamb and, putting it on the doorposts of the house that saved the Israelites. But then later on, it talks about also this time period where you're not going to, it's going to be centered around the symbol of the matzah. Okay, the journey, if you will. Yes, David, maybe you can refresh my memory.
It's not so much a matter of refreshing, but a matter of I'm wondering if you're thinking that the other Passover, which Rabbi Miri says is not ours, refers to Easter, which is the only Christian
no.
holiday that I know of that follows the Hebrew calendar, which celebrates the resurrection of Jesus.
Right.
I guess not. But it's just a
I'd have to look this up. I'd have to look it up. And I'll try to
Let me
do
go
that.
for Dr. Google.
Uh-oh. And the other question I had was a festival at the end of the holidays. Uh, Lynn, do you or anyone, Shemini Atzeret? Shemini Atzeret.
That's
Is this
the end of Sukkot, after Sukkot.
after Sukkot? Because I've seen it, but are there other Shemini Atzerets?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
That's the only one.
Okay, because we're going to
And
be
it's
talking
in the
about
Torah.
Sukkot also.
It's a Torah holiday. It's not a rabbinic holiday. It's
Right,
like a holy convocation.
right.
Like
Because the wording is going to, when we go to the Sukkot, it uses the same wording here, and that's why I was wondering if this is tied together in some way. I guess not.
So I'm
Okay.
just looking at the Passover for this year, which according to my calendar begins the evening of Saturday evening, April 12th. And since we don't prepare food,
That's
on
right, that's right, that's right. Sorry, not the 11, I fly, but it's the 12. Keep going,
Well,
I'm sorry.
so my practical question is, how does one prepare food for a Seder on Shabbat?
That's a good question. It's a good question, a very, very good question. The issue of the food is secondary. The time is more important. So you'll have to do it just like the way that you do the Shabbat. You prepare stuff and put it on the hot plate. Probably like that. I need to recheck that, Lynn, because I don't remember, but it's probably that way. It's probably because it's Shabbat Shabbaton. I mean, it's a double Shabbat. And you're right. We have to ask the question, if I cannot cook on Shabbat, how we going to do it? Those that don't cook on Shabbat won't eat on the Seder. Or we eat only cold cuts. I don't know. It just
Just
Me-
like for Shabbat, you begin preparing like by Wednesday and Thursday, and then
Yeah,
and you're cooking Friday. But this time you're cooking Friday for Shabbat, and then you're eating cold stuff all day through Shabbat, and then the Seder comes.
you
well,
hire help.
delicious,
It's frozen.
You hire help.
Yeah. The issue I need to look into what the religious people do, because it's not an issue of mitzvot to eat hot food on the Seder. I mean, there's no, the issue of the food that we eat is not, it's not an issue. It's a non-issue. It's more a tradition that we eat those. As long as you eat it on matzah, it doesn't matter what you put on it. The only mitzvah about eating is the matzah. The figure out the Haggadah and all that stuff, it's so much later. So I cannot tell you from the Torah what to do there. But any one of you that have, or maybe Michael, ask your family that grew up religious, what did they do? Maybe they ate cholent, they put it in the oven and they left it there for the next day. I don't know. I just don't know. I can only speculate and figure out what makes sense, but it's a very good question. How do you prepare for Shabbat, for Pesach? It's Shabbat.
I don't remember, because we wouldn't, my parents wouldn't cook on the Shabbat, on Shabbos, they wouldn't do that. So I cannot think back if and when it fell on a Shabbat what they did, but it would seem to me, what I think now, would be very, very difficult. But if you're extremely Orthodox, you would start cooking. I know this sounds very odd. I don't know if it can be done, but you start your cooking after Shabbat, and you have the service very late or very early in the morning. And so if you want to, keep Glatt kosher as far as the time element is, that's really your only alternative. Or unless, like Lynn said, you start preparing Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and you're stuck with a cold plate. So those are the two choices, but the one choice that makes the most sense is to start after Shabbat and do the best you can and know that you're going to have a very, very late or early morning service.
Yeah, so Havdalah on Saturday night, April 12th is going to be fairly late.
Okay, so you have the Havdalah, and then after that, in that evening starts the next day. And the Seder is at the end of that day. You said the 12th is Friday or Saturday?
Saturday.
Saturday, okay. So it's Saturday, you finish the Shabbat. By now it's not holiday yet, because the holiday is going to start next evening, on the 13th?
No, it starts on the 12th.
On the 12th, which is Shabbat. So we're having the
Erev
Seder on
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
Yeah, the one thing I do remember when I was a child is the fish swimming around in the bathtub.
In the bathtub.
That's what I remember.
I heard about that. Now let me go back. I'm going to check. I have Israeli friends that I WhatsApp with, so I'll find it out, and I'm going to send a message to Marty, and Marty is going to disseminate it. Now, regarding the Paschal lamb, it refers to the lamb sacrificed and eaten during the Jewish Passover celebration, a ritual symbolizing the Israelites delivering from slaves. Now, one of the things that we put on the plate is the
Shank bone.
shank bone. So it's a representative of that, but it's not a holiday. It's it's something that was eaten, and many of us eat lamb during the Seder, is representing that, but does not create a new holiday or an extra holiday.
Okay.
Now here people ask why Jesus is referred to the Paschal lamb. Gospel of John's employed this imagery by stating that Jesus was sentenced to death, blah, 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 blah. We won't go into that. But basically, it's not a holiday. It's not an extra holiday. It's we do it on the Pesach table, on the plate. We put the bone and eat the lamb to represent what the Yetziat Mitzrayim, the living of Egypt.
Right. I was referring to ancient times because we ran it. It started the passage. I'll have to look up the passage because there. If I remember, it's in the book of Exodus.
No, Marty, the Seder is a much later. It's a Talmudic thing. You see, as we are reading here, there's nothing to do that we have to do a Seder.
That's right, but back,
Well,
I'll
see
have
if
to
you
find it.
remember that. I'm really curious to see that. I'm really, because I'm sorry I don't know about that. What
You
I
don't-
know, go
Yeah,
ahead.
one it deals with the holiday recognizing the matzah, and the other the lamb, and it and then later time-wise it was all blended into one. But I'd have to I'm going to have to do some homework on that too.
Okay.
Anyway, any other comments where we're at so far? Okay, if somebody would care to read verses 26 to the end of 31. Lynn, would you care to read that, please?
Sure, I can read that. On the day of the first fruits, your feast of weeks, when you bring an offering of new grain to the Lord, you shall observe a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. You shall present a burnt offering of pleasing odor to the Lord, 2 bulls of the herd, 1 ram, 7 yearling lambs. The meal offering with them shall be of choice flour with oil mixed in, 3/10 of a measure for a bull, 2/10 for a ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. And there shall be 1 goat for expiation in your behalf. You shall present them, see that they are without blemish, with their libations, in addition to the regular burnt offering and its meal offering.
Okay. So this is the Feast of Weeks, Shavuos.
Yeah, Shavuot, yes.
Yes.
Chag Bikurim, the holiday of Bikurim.
Okay.
And that's again a holiday of not working. And it's interesting, in the diaspora, Shavuot is hardly celebrated, which is interesting because it's one of the main regalim. It's one of the main 3 holidays that you have to go to Yerushalayim in Aliyah L'Regel, to the temple. So the fact that we don't celebrate, I call it the Blintzes holiday. That's the holiday that we eat cheesecake and cheese stuff, and that's the celebration. So
Why is dairy emphasized during that time?
that's the big question. That's the biggest question. If you find the answer for it, God bless you. I no idea. No idea, because this holiday is called also the holiday of giving the Torah.
Yes.
Okay, so when it was given the Torah, we were told to wash ourselves, to change the clothing, and I think it says not to eat meat there. I think I need to recheck in Ma'amad Ar Sinai, when we were in the mountain of Sinai. And maybe that brought the issue of not eating meat. That means eating milchig, to eat dairy. I need to go and recheck. As I get older, more and more stuff is going out of my head. But I think that was the issue. Eating meat is always, according to this, eating meat makes you unholy. And not that they were vegetarians, but in that case, perhaps that was some people translated to the custom to eat their
I don't know.
gay vase.
All right. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, well, for me, it's clear that all of this information, what was just read, is dedicated to God. Everything,
Everything. Yes.
every single detail is presented in front of God to God. And that's what just strikes out at me. Everything.
Yeah. Well, the focus is on following these very in a very rigid manner. It starts the whole discussion. You must pay full attention to doing these rituals every year. And it starts out that way in verse, what is it, 1 or 2 of this whole section. Yeah, verse 2. So it is. I just find it a little interesting. Next week we'll go on to the book of Numbers, chapter 29, and we'll start with verse 1. In the remaining time, any other questions or now, other than the holidays coming up, Passover holiday, any other announcements or anything?
I just wanted to say that I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed today's Torah study. It's one of the best ones. I've
You
really,
said that a few weeks ago too, David.
I say it all the time, every week.
You're repeating yourself.
Well, we brought in a lot of different ideas. I think it's important to see the different. Here today we were talking about similarities between our religion and science, and light, and maybe that had an influence on Einstein. I don't know. Haven't read anything in the books on Einstein and that.
I would like to suggest, which I think I've done this a few weeks ago too, that Shakespeare in Macbeth again, in his famous speech about time at the very end, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and it is a stretch to say this, but I'd like to suggest that he anticipated Einstein's general relativity by 300 years by talking about God.
Good one. Good one. Any other comments? Well, if not, I'm going to say we only have 5 minutes to go. You can stay on for 5 minutes and discuss whatever you want, or I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom and
Shabbat
have a
shalom.
good, healthy week.
I wanna
We
say
need it.
Well,
Thank you
my,
for
my,
everyone.